Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin, also the publisher of thebreaker.news. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Thank you.
The BC legislative investigation getting even more interesting in that Border Protection Services may now be involved. Can you tell us about that?
Well, the report that Daryl Plekas released on January 21st through the Legislative Assembly Management Committee in Victoria indicated that he had a conversation during a December 2017 business trip to the United Kingdom with Craig James to the effect that Daryl Plekas had bought some scotch to bring home and kind of remarked to Craig James that he'll probably have to pay a bit of duty. And Craig James, according to Daryl Plekas, said, well, do as I do, don't declare it. And Plekas said that he remembered that comment as being a bit brazen, but not advice that he followed. Now, in the report and the appendices that were released on January 21st, there's something missing. Couldn't find anything to do with any reimbursement, any expense claims for duties and taxes related to anything that Craig James, the suspended clerk, and Gary Lenz, the suspended sergeant-at-arms, bought on the road. And you'd think that things like the suits that they bought, which were for uniform use at the legislature, that that would have been there would have been a duty or tax charge to that, but they may not have declared that at all. That they may have just bought what they did and didn't file any expense claims for items that they should have. And in fact, the rules are with Canada Customs, when in doubt, declare. And even if you are gone for the 48 hours that you, or the longer period of time that you do have a duty-free allowance, that doesn't cover commercial goods. Commercial goods include goods that are used for occupational use at work. Personal goods, which do qualify for the exemption depending how long you've been out of the country, those are mostly for household use. That's really the rough thumb line, rough guideline there. But there apparently was no declaration that caused them to be given an invoice by Canada Customs that caused them to file an expense claim for it. Couldn't find anything there. And there's that one comment by Daryl Plekas in the Plekas report that may have caused Customs and Border Services Agency to start an investigation. I contacted them this week, and a spokesman for the agency wouldn't confirm or deny that there is an investigation, just said that that's their policy. You'd think that if there was nothing wrong, that if they had looked into their own database, I provided them the full names of Craig James, the full names of Gary Lenz, that they would come back to me and said no, but instead they said that they can't confirm or deny that there is an investigation or not. So, we'll see if this turns into something, but this could be more problem for Gary Lenz and Craig James, who are already facing an RCMP investigation that includes 2 special prosecutors, an investigation that's been ongoing since last summer. The Plekas report caused the Legislative Assembly Management Committee to give them a deadline to file an explanation to defend themselves. Well, February 1st was the deadline. They asked for more time. They got more time. February 7th was the new deadline for them to file their defense for their spending, an explanation for their spending. we must also remind ourselves that last November, after this all happened, all went down to the legislature, there was a news conference a week later where Craig James and Gary Lenz did, at their lawyer's office, say that they did no wrong, that they cooperate with the investigation, and that they demanded to be reinstated to their jobs. That's the last we really heard of them. I did ring the doorbell at Craig James' house in Saanich after the Plekas report was released on January 21st. He didn't answer. His wife answered. She said he's innocent, and would be responding eventually through his lawyer. So that's where we stand right now at this hour, as we wait for the response. But at this hour, as per the story that I broke today on the Breaker.news, that Canada Customs authorities may be looking at Craig James and Gary Lenz for possibly not filing declarations and not paying duty owing on some very expensive things that they bought while they were on overseas trips, including suits, including jewelry, including other items that they filed expense reports for and were not really personal use items.
Wasn't one of the items that they circled luggage turn out to be a very expensive watch?
Yeah, there was the expensive watch, there was the luggage, there was the cufflinks. They charged taxpayers for these items, and of course they didn't think that taxpayers would know about them because the Legislative Assembly is not subject at this time to the Freedom of Information Law.
There's a proposal now to allow Freedom of Information requests for the legislature. Simply put, though, wouldn't it be better if they were just open and transparent in their actions and did their accounting like every other department?
Well, that would be nice if we could trust all of our public employees to do the right thing, and we didn't need an extra law. But that's just not the way it works. We need these checks and balances, and there's 2,900 public bodies in British Columbia, provincial and municipal, crown corporations, ministries, regional districts, city halls, you name it. But there's one that isn't, that takes about $75 million or more of our money every year and spends it in secret, and that's the Legislative Assembly. And we need that law to happen there, and that's what last week the Information Privacy Commissioner Michael McAvoy told me, and he said the same thing this week in an open letter that he wrote along with the Merit Commissioner and along with the Ombudsperson, calling for the NDP government to finally plug these holes, to put freedom of information in effect at the Legislative Assembly, to put merit-based hiring in effect at the Legislative Assembly, and put whistleblower protection in effect at the Legislative Assembly. It was a pretty quick response by Mike Farnworth, the Solicitor General, who's also the NDP government House Leader, to say in no uncertain terms that he would be taking these recommendations and he'd be putting them in place, that they will happen. Devils in the details, though. He didn't say when, and we haven't seen the wording. So it is a step forward that the House Leader for the governing party did acknowledge that that the Merit Commissioner, the Information Privacy Commissioner, and the Ombudsperson are right, and that they do need to make changes so that this does not happen again in the legislature. We'll just have to see what the wording is on those bills when they are introduced, and hopefully they're introduced in the spring session. We might have to wait until the fall session for them. It would be a shame if we have to wait even longer, because this is long overdue, and if anything that this scandal has taught us is that there needs to be checks and balances, and there needs to be transparency and openness. The things that are described in the Plekas report of what Craig James and what Gary Lenz did are the kind of things we don't see the bureaucrats and the cabinet ministers do much at all anymore, because they know there are people like me that'll file an FOI request to find out what they were doing, who they were meeting, what they're spending money on, and they know there's consequences for that. That might be the root of the evil that we've seen unearthed by Daryl Plekas at the Legislative Assembly, is that people were spending our money without any scruples whatsoever, because simply they thought nobody would ever know. Well, there's a certain criminologist from the Fraser Valley who became Speaker in September 2017, And he started to look under the rocks and stones, and didn't like what he found. And November 20th happened, and so did January 21st, and we're waiting for the next shoes to drop in this sordid scandal.
Why do you think the BC legislature was allowed to run in secret for so long?
Well, there's this archaic notion of parliamentary privilege and entitlement that this is this body which is exalted, and it's under the crown, and it's to be respected at all costs, and it's this arm of government that should be respected, just like the judiciary, that the people that we send there are making laws, and of course down the figurative hallway are the judges who decide the laws, they interpret the laws, that the work that they're doing is so important that it must be done in a vacuum and must be done in secret, because they need to have that extra breathing room because they're making important decisions. All of that is just hooey. Yes, there should be, some people argue, some allowance to formulate those laws before they become bills, before they get debated in the public forum that is our legislature. And there are at constituency offices for MLAs sensitive issues that are being discussed, whereby constituents are reaching out to their MLAs as their local representatives elected to represent them with serious concerns about how citizens are treated by government, and that MLAs should have some sort of ability to confidentially receive those complaints and investigate those complaints on behalf of citizens, whether it be poor treatment by BC Hydro or poor treatment by ministries that handle seniors or children. I think we can understand that, but when it comes to spending our money, when it comes to procurement, doing contracts, when it comes to travel, the administrative records of the legislature deserve no special protection. They deserve to be put into the public realm so that we can see how our money is being spent, and we can also put pressure on those officials, whether elected or they're appointed, to do things responsibly and always remember who the boss is. The boss is us.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, a proposal again on the table to perhaps give a commercial name to BC Place Stadium, that gorgeous stadium with the roof that retracts when the weather's nice and closes up when it's bad. Do you think this deal might go through, and what are the implications? Well,
it's a smart move by the NDP to look at this again, although it would have been better if they did this a little bit quicker. But of course they've regenerated the board at BC Pavilion Corporation and have some new managers in there who have more experience than the ones did before. They seem to be less political in the board than the BC Liberal board was, and now they're dusting this off. This idea that the BC Liberals had, which the BC Liberals ruined essentially. They had a deal with TELUS. TELUS had a $40 million cash and in-kind deal over a 20-year period back when the stadium opened in 2011 to call it TELUS Park. TELUS installed $15.2 million worth of goods and services, of high-tech screens and Wi-Fi and other technology into the stadium. It was going to be a showcase of their technology and a showcase of the, British Columbia's biggest private company, essentially. But there was politics behind the scenes. TELUS in June 2011 had received a 10-year, billion-dollar omnibus contract from the government to provide telecommunications to the government, including ministries, including health authorities, after a 2-year bidding process had suddenly ended on 9 different contracts across government. Rogers, Shaw, and Bell were not very pleased about that and threatened legal action after the government made that decision. So that was, the background that 2011 was. You had a new stadium about to open. You had the BC Liberal government that was looking at possibly calling an early election, but those plans were shelved after the HST referendum failed. And so they went back to the drawing board. But there's also other pressure that was happening. The 2 tenants of BC Place Stadium are the Vancouver Whitecaps and BC Lions. The Whitecaps' top sponsor is Bell. And Bell had called the playing surface at Empire Field, the temporary stadium, while BC Place was being renovated, Bell Pitch. And when the Whitecaps moved into BC Place, they kept on calling it Bell Pitch. So you had this sponsorship conflict that was happening. You also had the premier at the time, Christy Clark, who was a close friend of the Whitecaps owner, Greg Kerfoot. There was lobbying going on behind the scenes, and eventually in early 2012, that's when BC Liberal government pulled the plug in a very controversial fashion, and a very weak fashion, too. They tried to say that the BC Place was iconic, and that the deal wasn't the best deal for taxpayers, and then they're going to go out and get a better deal for the taxpayers in other fashions without actually having to change the name of the stadium. Well, that didn't quite work, because last year there was a $12.1 million loss on the BC Pavilion Corporation balance sheet, and almost all of that was from BC Place operations. This is a stadium that doesn't make money, stadium that is owned by the people still, when we've got hospitals and schools that need money for both operations and for capital. Our government still feels it needs to own and operate a stadium. That hasn't changed much from the BC Liberals to the NDP, but at least the NDP have decided to find ways to try to monetize this asset and bring in the money. But the question I have is, and it'll be answered in the months to come, is can they get anywhere near that $40 million that TELUS had in that deal back in 2011, 2012? I think it's going to be a challenge, because things have changed since then. The stadium is more than 7 years older. The opening honeymoon didn't last long. There aren't many big events that are coming along to the stadium. There's no Grey Cup on the schedule yet. There is, on the good side of things, the annual Rugby Sevens event that happens every March is a smashing success, and it might as well be. It's like having a Grey Cup every year over that weekend. The amount of people they bring in there, the amount of food and beverage they sell, and also the international reputation Vancouver has now being on the World Rugby Sevens circuit. So that is in its favor. The Whitecaps and Lions attendance in recent years has fallen. The Whitecaps and Lions have performed very poorly on field, have not made these teams contenders. At the same time as their audience has aged, for the Lions at least. And the Whitecaps do have a younger audience, but they've been averaging about 18,000 last year. The Lions averaged last year under 15,000. That's a long, far cry from the glory years of spectator sports in Vancouver. So you've got that situation where you also have downtown. It's harder to get around, to go to games, to find parking. And there's also less discretionary income in this market these days. This is a very expensive city, as we know, from real estate, from buying real estate to renting real estate. And there's also governments at all levels have their hands in our pockets like never before for taxes and fees. And you also have the situation where Whitecaps and Lions games are not blacked out and they're covered by TSN. You can watch them on TV and you get a very good TV experience to watch these games. And you can watch it at home on your big screen. You can watch it on your small screen. They're webcast now. And, you can go to your nearby watering hole and, the money that you'd spend on tickets and the time you'd spend on going to, the games at BC Place, you could reinvest in going to your local watering hole and having a good experience with, friends you know and friends you don't know. So, the question is, can they get a sponsor, of the level of TELUS to come in and write a big check or put forward a lot of, goods and services, as well as use the stadium as a cornerstone of their marketing effort? That'll be a question that'll be answered. Right now, I'm thinking it may not bring as much to the table as they had in hand in 2011 and 2012 when it was the BC Liberals making the decision. We'll see what it brings, but at least the NDP is taking this step forward and trying to erase one of the bigger mistakes made by the BC Liberals while they were in power.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTC QB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website grandportage.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, on the Breaker.news, you have a story. Vancouver police quietly mourn a colleague as the coroner investigates. What's behind that?
A very sad story. 30-year-old Nicole Chan died on January 27th. She had been on stress leave. She had some mental illness problems to deal with. There were also allegations made about sexual harassment by her superiors, and I was tipped off by a source that this had happened. I contacted the Vancouver police. They did issue a statement to me a couple of days after it happened, confirming that there was a very sad incident that they were dealing with in-house. I got that from the media relations office. Unfortunately, the chief, Adam Palmer, and deputy chief Rye did not respond to me. I thought that was interesting. The top two officers didn't want to touch this, even though that was during the same week of the annual Bell Let's Talk promotion, the awareness raising and fundraising event that Bell Media has every year to encourage a conversation about mental health and the problems and the solutions in order to eventually get to that solution where the stigma isn't happening. We didn't have the two top officials from the Vancouver police address this. Well, the Vancouver police are addressing this eventually in one form. There is a funeral planned for February 15th for 30-year-old Nicole Chan, and a source also told me that the officers have been encouraged to appear at that funeral in their dress uniform, and also civilians who are members of the police, civilian members, to go in business attire. So they're not sweeping this under the rug entirely, that they are at least holding this funeral for a fallen member. But the coroner's office did confirm that they are investigating, and we'll see if this investigation turns into a coroner's court hearing eventually. We did have one in November looking at the very sad death of Pierre Lemaitre, who took his own life back in 2013 after suffering PTSD and suffering workplace bullying. There were some recommendations that were given to the RCMP from that coroner's court hearing, including regular mental health checks. They do physical health checks of the RCMP. Well, the coroner suggested that the RCMP adopt a system where they do mental health checks on the officers in the force. that hasn't been fully implemented yet, but at least that conversation's out there that that needs to be done for the RCMP. There needs to be a larger conversation. It's already begun about first responders, people who we rely on in our community to come and help us when we're in need and to save lives and to investigate crimes and to put out fires and help people who are injured, take them to the hospital. The people that we rely on the front lines, police, fire, ambulance, as well as people who work in jails and other aspects of the law and order equation. There's enough scientific evidence out there that those people are more susceptible to mental illness, more susceptible to thoughts of suicide than the general public. And these are people that have to deal with very serious incidents that essentially see people on the worst days of their lives, and to help people in great misery and great grief and great trauma sometimes. And there is the move that the NDP government did last year for presumptive coverage through workers' compensation. That was a step forward, that people who are suffering and need to take time off work and need to recover somehow are getting a chance to get their coverage fast-tracked. So this is a conversation that needs to go even further, because there still might be some attitudes within some of the old guard and some of these institutions that look at this as a show of weakness when people do talk about their feelings and about what goes on when they're on duty. But there is, again, the new school that says that no, this should not be swept under the rug, because we need to save lives, save the lives of those who we rely on to save the lives of the community. So we'll probably see some more media attention next week when that funeral does happen. My story was first out there, and it's a story that not proud of telling, but a story that needs to be told, because these problems need to be solved, and those people who deal with these on a daily basis do need more help, so that they can have the help they need, so that they can do the best they can to continue to help the community.
Yes, and if they're suffering, it's almost like the old guard feels, well, if you can't put up with it, quit. These are well-trained, intelligent people who, with therapy, most likely will be back on the job and better informed than others.
And it is cumulative. My research has shown that it's not one or two or three. It just piles up and piles up and piles up, and the people that suffer just eventually are exhausted and realize there's been one too many. And if you look at some of the stories he did about Pierre Lemaitre, including a letter that he wrote before his death to try to get benefits to pay his bills, about the humanity there, that there had been one too many incidents where he'd went to of women being murdered or raped, and how he just sort of stood back from it and wondered, how society could seem to just go on and ignore those who are pleading for help, and looking at the humanity of it all, and eventually he was pushed over the edge when the Robert Jacansky incident happened at Vancouver International Airport, and he was the media relations officer, and he was given bad information, and that information was corrected pretty quickly because there was an eyewitness video that came to light. Well, he went to his superiors and said, look, we got to tell the truth of what happened in this incident. It didn't happen the way he was originally told, and his superiors would not let him tell the truth. And that really was the last straw for him, and spiraled into PTSD, and he never really recovered. And the stories that were told even by his widow at the coroner's court hearing last November were very difficult to listen to. And you'd have to think that if some of the programs that are starting to exist now existed back then when he was needing help the most, well, maybe he'd be alive today.
Bob, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you.
My guest has been investigative reporter Bob Mackin, the publisher of TheBreaker.News, his website, thebreaker.ca. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show or our guests like Bob can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.